Greetings, greetings, peace, peace, peace. Y'all could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me today. Make sure I get this lighting correct. I feel like that's good. Man, oh man, man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I feel like I'm gonna just jump right into this because let's give honor to Source. Let's give gratitude to everything that we're experiencing right now. like, uh, gratitude. Let me tell y'all, let me express to y'all, man. One of the most challenging things on this journey that I'm really, one of the biggest lessons for me is learning the process of like navigating. I've talked about it before, like navigating my emotions, but in reality, it's literally I feel, or I know I feel like, or believe that a lot of this has to do with self mastery and the different concepts. Like you may be somewhere on your journey where, well, on my journey, a lot when I reflect back on my childhood has a lot to do with the emotional abandonment things I've discussed before, and then seeing the patterns of the emotional impulse that I've taken, throughout relationships and so forth, and learn to mastering those emotions. And what came up for me around this has a lot to do with, oh my gosh, has a lot to do with having patience and being easy with myself. I don't feel like this isn't talked about enough. Like really being easy, gentle, learning to have to be gentle with myself again. Reflecting so much on memories coming up from the past, from my childhood, things that I wanted to push down. And then it's like, even, it's funny, I'm looking at a vision board, but it says your next level. And on my previous podcast episode, I talked about this. Like your next level requires, no longer requires an old version of you. It's like a transitional period where you're letting go, or the old you is dying away. It's not that you forget it, and it's like you're burying that part of you. And in that transitional phase, energies can present themselves people in people, and you know things can happen to where you have people that want to keep you in that place that they're at, in that mindset, in that emotional state, in that place where they don't even see themselves growing. And so that's when their insecurities rear their ugly head. That's when things are revealed that we can no longer ignore or can be ignored. And man, let me tell you, oh my gosh. One of the most challenging things is like when as you're elevating, and here comes, let's say, they might say like somebody, not just from the past, but someone just coming in and bringing up something that isn't relatable to your present. Or even folks don't even realize like what it took for you to even be where you are. And them there speak on your journey, them there speak on your path. Like this has been one of the most challenging experience over I need some water. Like 2-3 years in like relationships. Shit, I say even 10 years. Because so much has been revealed. And it amazes me how many, or just energetically, people could assume and have so much, easily can throw a stone and judge your circumstances, not knowing what the fuck it took for you to even get where you are. Not knowing what you went through emotionally, mentally, nothing. This is one thing that really, like, I had to become at peace with, is blocking out things as such, to tell myself, you know what, that argument isn't worth it. And you know, everyone's not the same. I had to talk to someone about that. I was like, look, you may handle things in a peaceful manner, but everyone won't do that. And that's growth, but it still can be growth from people who could want to put pause on people, want to hurt, out of, disrespect or just anything, but they choose to just, and a lot of you know that, they choose to just be like, you know what? I'm going to let them have it. I'm going to let them have it. I'm going to let them have it because sometimes, like I said, it's easy for me to speak from my perspective. Just reflecting on not only what I went through in the past, but what has been said. And it makes me reflect on just how no one's really going to, how loud insecurities are for one. But it just amazes me the lengths people will go. And everyone's not the same. I will say that. Individually, we all have a path and purpose. We're all of value. We all are chosen. Let's get that out there. My thing is just everyone doesn't choose to be a better them, if that makes sense. They don't want to choose to change their life or their circumstances. And man, let me tell you, I was taking a walk and I was reflecting on this. I said, oh my gosh, whew. I'm just grateful for the patience, because as I'm reflecting, I'm pondering, hold on, man. That old you. And they ain't the old you. Sometimes people forget that it's still there. And then sometimes there's moments where you got to remind people, and that's family. It don't matter who it is. You got to fucking remind people, look, you don't run the show. I run the show over here. I'm the main character in this story. Now, there was a point in time where I used to give my power away, but that ain't happening no more. That shit ain't happening no more. And the only thing I would say with it is that it's a tolerance thing. When you get to a place of your self-worth, and you just no longer want to tolerate the ignorance of people and keep brushing it off all right, yeah, I'm just let this happen. But as you change and grow and elevate, so does people. One thing I pay attention to, I had to sit back and observe, is really paying attention to the actions of people. Depending on the environment we grew up in. Again, I grew up in environments where I saw a lot of people embrace their anger. I gotta let this dry. I saw a lot of people embrace their anger. So for me, that really, in my later years now, it really now, as a lot of emotions still surface from the past, and it's a healthy balance, because you see the unhealthiness, then you see your unhealthy patterns, and then you're trying, in that process of changing it, in process of shifting, here come this clown, here come this energy, here come this somebody want to remind you of something, and it just be amazing me. That's the thing people don't see on a daily basis. Here you are trying to just navigate through in this month. Look, man, I'm already past that. I appreciate the apology. Even if it ain't an apology, look, man, what you want me to say? That growth to have you realizing, man, you know what? I appreciate you showing me that. I don't even, I'm going to just leave it right there, that chapter. I'm going to just leave it right there. Because, man, the energy, one thing about this, the healing journey, it is a process of one really, I had to unlearn the process of self-sacrifice and self-harm and, self-abuse, in a way of not listening to my own intuition to myself, and really pay attention to those who also, repeated that same behavior or see where the behavior stemmed from. And so in that process, I'm like, yo, something. I just, you get to that place, like, this ain't gonna happen no more. Enough is enough. I used to sit back and tell myself, how do I even put up with myself? I used to look at people like, how did you even put up with me? And the challenging thing is like how I realized with the ones that were caregivers or so forth, these memories that are like surfacing. One of the things I talked about is physical abuse, man. Like how some people, the mental illness around people really thinking or assuming that hitting a child in any way without acknowledging their emotional impulse and justifying the behavior. Now, I'm not judging on one to where it's like people have moments. We all have had moments, or we had moments to where whether we said something, whether it was a physical altercation, environments, and so forth. So it's not about being perfect. What baffles me is when people don't acknowledge it. It's the ignorance and being in denial that you really feel like that wouldn't, as we are adults or coming into our adulthood, like even though you're not aware, you couldn't possibly think that wouldn't have had like affected a child. And then when we try to bring it to their awareness, that's the most challenging thing when you're trying to tell someone you love and you finally get out. Years later, 20, 30 years later, you're finally trying to get the opportunity like, this hurt me. And I'm trying to tell you. And for people to simply just bypass, ignore it, and just simply, I've seen this pattern so many times with people. There's no accountability. There's no room, them not wanting to accept a lot of things and see their role in what transpired. And just assuming that we should keep the door open, or just assuming that, and that's the most unhealthy part about it. Everyone isn't the same, but that's the thing that really fucking like bothers me. And then as you're elevating or trying to make a change, here's this energy, or here's this thing that still wants to linger and remind you of, oh well, I'm still going to push, and this push-pull thing. And that was one of my most challenging things, is the one that you grow to love or through time. And it was so much of a challenge, even just trying to let it go. Trying to realize like it is healthy. It is okay to let go. It is okay. And it will get better. Because I sat back and the things that I took on, and again, it's challenging. It can be very challenging on this journey because that's a whole new beginning. This is not really new to me because I feel like the energy that I carry is like I lived through rebirth. And right now, like, I haven't painted in like, y'all don't know, I think I mentioned it before, but I recently went through things to where that showed me a lot about myself, showed me a lot about a relationship, showed me a lot about my own emotional health, well-being, and so forth. And then even again, how things, like memories that resurface that you thought that were gone, and they come up. And in that coming up, I just wanted to ignore so much of what has happened in my childhood, what has happened, and going back to like, in environments where they would justify abuse, whether it's verbal, physical, and all, like they would justify it. And no one knows like that, man. It takes so much courage in this shit to every day get up and decide that you want to have peace in your life. And then you have someone, again, due to their programming, due to their wounding, they want to choose the opposite of that. And then in that, expect you not to defend or protect that peace that you so like over the years, however, whatever the duration, you took so much the effort in trying to get to that place, facing the generational traumas and the curses and shit. And one thing I was reflecting, I was like, yo, the men in my family, some things that I realized, like, due to the woundedness, depending on what they grew up around, I'm like, man, have they really had peace? Have they really inherited some type of peace, or do they even know what it is? And I was like, yo, this got to be bigger than what it's been, like what I'm recovering on in my life, connecting to the men in my family. You know, it made me reflect on even how my grandfather transitioned a few months ago, and just saw how people act. But I was grateful that I had the discussions with him. You know, I always tell people there's an elder alive if they're in their awareness, and then they have some gems. They are like a library. You know, having an open mind to even listen to them. They are like a library. And so that transition with him, even though, like, you know, it was challenging because I already kind of felt it and knew it, but a part of me wanted to believe, like, you know, this is not going to happen. You know, we don't immediately expect these things to happen so quickly. You know, I wanted to believe, like, you know, oh, he'll be around a little bit longer, but to even have those sit downs and him tell me about, you know, things ancestrally, things that he grew up around, things that, you know, his mother, his grandmother and all of them, you know, indigenous, you know, things that connected him to the land and how he lived, you know, just going over there. And it was real beautiful because I used to go over there and cut his hair when no one else would. And just to sit down and just go over there and check up on, that's been one of the biggest things on my path, is that for me, I always felt like some may call it like an old soul, because I used to always be around elders. Or I would always try to be around someone with some type of wisdom. And I feel like that's what kind of set me apart from a lot of people, because it's just like I always felt like that. And I always knew like that kind of was more valuable than trying to do what everyone else is doing. But then I like, the thing that really gets to me, or not like it used to, and I'm gradually seeing this, like, there's really no rush on the journey, man. Everyone's at a different place emotionally, mentally, spiritually, however you look at it. It's just like a child. You know, a child reminds me all the time of, like, they're learning. They're unlearning, or they're in the most vulnerable place. They're learning this whole world. And I see that no different than what we're all right now processing. We're seeing the old world crumble right before our eyes. And we're relearning. In my unlearning the old world, the unlearning the process of, like, what I thought was, you know, what fulfilled me or brought me, you know, fulfillment, or what I assumed what success was. All of that, again, now reminded me of, like, wow, I'm like a newborn child, rebirth through all of this, just by me, like, getting away or moving away from certain environments and people, and realize, like, even through that process and transition, you're relearning a whole new environment. So you're like naked in a way spiritually. You're being reborn through these phases in your life. All of us are being reborn through that relationship, whether it ending and you just now beginning a new relationship with yourself. And that's what this reflects right now, this masterpiece. But again, before I get to that, it's like we're all experiencing something at different levels. And that's why I see how, like, the divine just looks at us like little kids, because we need not be so hard on ourselves for, you know, things that we didn't know. Even, you know, I used to tell myself I had to get to that place, like, I wanted my mom to feel so much of what I went through, but then I told myself, because we do that a lot. We do that. We point the finger. We want to blame everybody, or, you know, that's just the narrative of some, you know, hurt people. We want to make everyone feel the way we feel, whether unconsciously or not. And sometimes, you know, you have those that are intentional with it. But again, it's like we're displaying this, and why are we surprised when we see it, repeated in the kids? So again, it's like we're all either transitioning or going through a midlife crisis or transformation in our life, to where again we have been around people who have taken life so seriously. And what I mean by that, it's like they've been in survival mode, and that's all they know. I've been around people, that's all they do is take life so seriously. You have, elders argue up and down. Oh man, you should do this, you should do this. And it's like they don't even know how to approach life with a light heart, or with innocence, or with fun, because they never, their innocence was stripped from them. And so here I am trying to recover this part of myself, and then realizing in that recovering, I realized like I learned it from the old world, the old narrative of what life is all about. And now I'm just now learning to be reborn through innocence, to live life again and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be like this. I don't have to walk this path. I don't have to do what mom and daddy said. I don't have to go to college. This is my perspective. I don't have to do what they feel, is in the process of, oh, this is successful. If you won't do this, then you won't be successful. And some of the things people haven't even done. And then some of the things they have done, they're not even happy with. So it's like, who are you? And that sounds very fucking confusing. So with that, it's just like, again, man, be easy. I had to learn to be easy on myself again, because I was in that process, and I've been around people who would be so serious about everything. Oh my gosh, like, relax, lighten up. And once you realize it, it's like when you elevate, or you can say step back, I don't like, or just really observe and sit back. Oh my God, man, what? You will really see how a lot of people been going nowhere fast. They've been going nowhere fast. They've been trying to tell everybody else to follow them. And they've been going down a path of like a dead end their whole life, doing the same thing. Like a robot, living this robotic life. Then here you are, want to create some change, want to do something different, and it's so judged. It's automatically thrown to the wayside. No support. It's not to say for everybody, but this is just something I've experienced. And guess what? No one will know the depths of my pain. No one will know the depths of the struggles or things that I had to face to even be where I am. So this really your device running to and needs it. How the computer just randomly restart? What in the? So again, this is. Oh man, it's just, I would say, approach life like just like a little child. I was talking to someone earlier, and you ever been around someone, because I've been on the opposite end, where someone you're talking to, and you just so happen, like they're serious, they're like in this emotional place, and they're so serious about what they're talking about, and you just happen to laugh. And it's not that you're laughing at them. I started laughing at the fact of like, oh my gosh, I see myself in them, and I also was like, oh my gosh, like, why do you take this, like, certain things so serious? But it wasn't that like I wasn't hearing or listening to them. It was the awareness about like me being at a place of like just innocence and like detaching in a way, and be like, oh my gosh, I can laugh at this now. The laughter came from me being able to see myself and where I used to be. I'm like, dang, this person really need to lighten up. They take life so serious. Like, it's okay. Like, and they were just going through a lot of different emotions. I'm like, just breathe. It's all good. You're all right. And it was just funny how it just transpired, because they wanted to laugh, but they took my laughter as they went into defense. Like, oh my God, why you laughing? And I was like, it's not you. It's me laughing because I can relate to it, but at the same time, I'm just laughing to keep, the conversation light. I'm learning now to recover that goofiness that I've always been in, like really innocent and approaching things now with a lighter heart. Because again, to even get to that place, no one knows what it was to now be recovered or restored with that innocence. So it's like someone can approach me with something, an apology or something from the past, and I'll be like, laugh and be like, all right, it's okay. Like, it's cool. Like, all right, you got it. Like, but hey, it's where I'm at internally. You know, no one really knows what it took for you to get there. So again, they're coming from that mindset or coming from their internal dialogue where they're feeling emotions, and you're not emotionless, but you're just detached and not attaching yourself to their emotions. And so, you know, man, wherever you are, just know it's like, try to approach life innocently. And I feel like that's what, again, I've talked about before with the world and this approach, is that our childhood woundings and where people are in their careers and so forth, a lot of them don't even unconsciously know that a lot of those careers are connected to maybe some type of wounding, some type of repressed emotion, some type of experience where they want to feel some sense of empowerment or fulfillment, or they got into it for, some type of, to feel some type of authority because they didn't have that authority when they were younger. They didn't have or feel like they were seen, heard, felt, a lot of things. And some of us are coming to that self-realization, and that gets into this, like, now you see the flowers right here, because I'm now in a season where, I've gotten to a place where I've been watering so many other people. And now I'm in that place of now, like, the healing and accepting things for what they are. And this new version of myself, this new chapter, when I complete this, it's like the flowers represents the growth, the mental growth, inwardly and outwardly. But it's also, when I finish with it, it's like I'm watering myself and that's what healing is, I feel with, healing is learning to water those parts that you neglected. Like a perfect analogy, like if you look at the parts of yourself that you have neglected, it's just like a flower or a garden or certain things that have withered away or dried out. And the soil, which is like the root of who you are, it has, dried up. And that's like that pouring from an empty cup. It's a dry cup. So it's like that soil, from giving, and never really having no one to pour into you or be open to that reciprocity. Because sometimes we can block that reciprocity due to our own internal blockages or due to our own deflecting, defensiveness, egotistical things. And I told myself, I was like, you know what? I've gotten all the way here. And that's why I talked about in my previous episode about the vision board, like literally putting my mind towards something that I want to bring into reality, fruition, and believing it and having a good, exciting feeling about it. And through that, there's a transitional phase. There's a transformation. The woundings around, things that I don't want to see or what I fear. Okay, what's keeping me from receiving that? What am I not acknowledging? What do I need to water? Like, what have I neglected? Meaning a garden. If you neglect the garden, then what happens? It dries up. The food, the seeds doesn't get watered, then they dry out. Then you just have nothing. So the importance of me speaking about this is like, we reap what we sow. And at the same moment, if we've been reaping, in a sense, we've been giving, planting seeds in everyone else's life, whether we subconsciously know it or not, and unconsciously just keep going, planning in everyone's life and forgetting to, and when I mean, how could I break this down? Like, when I say planting seeds, it's like you're entering their life or you're in their life and so forth, and you're being everything for them but yourself. So in neglecting yourself, you also got to plant seeds in your life, plant seeds of, empowerment, love, things that empower the internal you, the inner child. So if, a father or mother have been putting their children before them and not knowing that this is a cycle that has been ongoing, then they're planting so much of seeds in their lives and forgetting about their own soil, tilling their own soil, tending to their own needs and so forth. So then we forget the fact that we also need watering as men and women, as little boys and girls, because when we water ourselves, then we're able to water each other. And so it's like a give, receive, give and receive. It's like a what you put out, you give. I mean, what you put out, you get back. So when we look at the state of humanity or the world, look at what can we say we have been given. And why are we surprised that when it returns that it's not of substance or value? So that's where the self-empowerment, self-confidence, and what's the opposite of that? You know, abandonment issues or self-hate, self-doubt. So that's the part of self that in self-sacrificing and wanting to pour into everyone else, then we're abandoning the self that needs the water, that needs the nurturing. If we're trying to look for the external things for our, from the childhood wounds, the abandonment issues, the emotional, all those things that we may have experienced in our childhoods, I had to become aware on my own journey. I was like, one thing about my artistry is that my artistry reflects me watering myself, me believing, me doing something that I love, doing something where I turn the pain into gain. The pain I experienced, the repressed emotions that I carry from the abuse that was inflicted, the cycles that I repeated through verbal, physical abuse, to where I realized like I had to change that narrative. I could no longer abandon my own garden within myself. I had to water the little boy that needed to be embraced. I needed to go back within myself, reflect back in my childhood, and to point out and to see, well, what part of me, or what is this emotion what is it highlighting? Okay, where did that stem from? What is the root of that? And going back to the root, I realized if that caregiver or that person didn't know how to water themselves, I realized that, I was not watered. And so then that taught me a pattern of self-abuse, then to abuse others, hurt people. So when we look at our internal garden, when we look at our internal world and so forth, what are we continuing to abandon or self-sacrifice for the happiness or for others? So, and in that, there's a transformation, there's a rebirth, because you're going back to that little child, that little person, or whomever it is within you, and you're recovering these memories. Then you're also being reborn through that emotion, through that anger, through that frustration, through whatever emotion that comes up. And so that rebirth that happens, you become anew. You begin to show up for that 7, 5, 15, 25, 34, 44, 55, whatever has happened, because that interaction, whether your mother or caregiver or so forth are present, there's still an interaction where either they're not seeing something and it still can affect you, or you're not seeing something and you're allowing it to affect you. So either way, it points out the fact of where are we not watering ourselves? Before we try to go help others, where are we neglecting ourselves? How have you showed up for yourself today? And so that's the rebirthing process. That's the season that I realize that I'm walking into and learning to embrace. And before I get there, everything was highlighted internally for me when it comes to like learning to master emotion, because I was around people, again, in environments where they just embrace anger. And in that, as a child, if I cannot defend myself, protect myself so young and so small, then I had naturally developed this, how could I say, self-abusive behavior, or repressing that anger or emotion that I felt, that pain that I was inflicted. And when I got to a place where I could express it, it could be in an outlet to where it could be through sports, through something, and this is what you see with the younger generation. It's like, I was telling someone, I was like, observe when you see how these kids are going out there and they're in these gangs or in just anything, in any environment, any nationality, whatever. There's something going on with them internally that they have learned, and they don't even know how to navigate that anger, that frustration, or that emotion. So again, they don't know how to water that. They don't know how to embrace it. They don't know how to accept it. So that's why you see them not knowing where to go and who to go to, because their go-to person has been or were their first bully, or the ones who were supposed to protect them. And so a lot of us now, I told myself, I was like, whoa, I get it now. This is why I realized, like, it's certain people I choose not to be around now. Because if I'm healing from relationships, here I am 30-something, and then the caregiver can be like 50, 60-something, to where I'm sitting here like, wow, I need not to be around them, because if I'm at a process of navigating my emotions and things still coming up from that childhood experience, me learning self-mastery and mastering my emotions is that I need to pour into me before I even entertain or open that door again, because so many things may come up to where I was telling someone, like, hey, do you know, like, I don't, the frustration that comes up around, the anger, the rage that comes up around that, it's best they not be around me. And that's what I feel like is so crazy, how the world has pushed this narrative of, like, if someone's angry, like, anger isn't like a righteous thing, or like certain emotions aren't righteous. If our kids were taught first, or it was implemented, and we were taught young that your emotions are a gateway to who your elevation and your ascending to who you are and to become in this world. Now, we were taught, like, or implementing within us how to navigate that, how to do breath work, breathe, how to put it into, like, what I naturally had to learn to do is, put it into my artistry. That's one thing I had to learn to navigate through, is like, when certain things I was going through transformation in life, part of my rebirth came through my artistry. Like, I think I've said this before in a video. It's like, you want to know what an artist is going through, look at their art. That's why we don't have to speak about things. Look at our art will speak for us. We don't have to say a word. And more so, like, even with people who are musicians in whatever they do, they don't have to say nothing, or their music, depending on if it's verbal or so forth, poetry. Everything in a way is an expression of energy, or energy coming from the feminine to the masculine. That which from the light, the light being birthed from the darkness. So that's the beauty of even emotions. It's like a raging war or storm within people. And we all have that shit. We all are, whether internally, it's like naturally going through this storm and then being rebirthed through that. It's like we're we're choosing to either be a rainbow to some people, and while navigating our own storm, or navigating these waters like in a boat, at the same moment trying to be calm. It's like it's been projected to the world. Like, I was telling someone, like, with caregivers or parents, if you want to use that term, it's like, why everybody want to portray themselves like being so fucking, this term, nice, or being so kind and all like that? Like, there's not another side of you. And I'm not saying intentionally harming or causing pain. It's like there's a side of everyone that, a lot of us that have gotten to this place of being at peace, or knowing what it is to navigate to get to that place, to where we know who we were. We know, not only we know who we were, but that still is a part of you. That version of you doesn't just go away. It's there in those moments where, you're triggered. It's, have you accepted that version to be who you are? that is a part of you. It's like making amends with, some people may use the terms demon and angels and stuff, or, it's like your shadow never leaves you. When you walk outside, you see your shadow. So that those versions of yourself, that's how you become to walk in integrity or be authentic. Due to what we have learned, and again, you transition in this life or try to, navigate this life, you're going to have people that reflect back their insecurities or their deepest, whatever it is they're going through, that war within themselves, the versions that used to remind you of yourself. Or they would try to bring that out of you. They would want you to come to that level where they are. And that's the most, that right there reminded me of the beauty of elevating, or the beauty of ascending, or realizing like, oh, I see the growth. I see it when I walked away from that, when I chose to do this, when and don't ever let anyone try to knock you out your square, out your box, or trick you out your spot to believe like you haven't grown. Every day you rise, every day you get up, and you choose to do and choose peace, because everybody don't get up. I used to have someone, I love her, like I appreciate my mother, but man, I see her grow. But one thing I used to see her get up angry. Like, go to bed angry, get up angry. We know somebody like that. And I just couldn't, really get it as a child, because I used to see it so much to where I just could not be around it. My frequency, I naturally realized now the vibe that I was at, it wasn't the same. And there's no difference in people. As you elevate, evolve, you're going to see, whether you are aware or not, to realize like this is where they want to be. Someone told me like, learn to lead people where they at, and I won't ever forget that. Meaning where they at within themselves and where they choose to be. You still will have a ripple on effect whether you move on, walk away, decide whether this relationship, friendship, associate, whatever it is best for you. And that's why I feel like we have been so far away from and disconnected, is from ourselves, from our true emotions. Because if you're talking about being in connections or being around people who have implemented or shown you the blueprint of narcissism, control, and manipulation, and emotionally, mentally, and so forth, what example have we fucking had to be honest with ourselves, but really facing ourselves to see that the honest parts or the authentic parts of ourselves, and even in others, reflecting back their true nature. So that's like the veil being lifted and so forth. It's like, come on, you cannot not see that. How naive you gonna be? And that's what it's like when people really don't want you to change. Oh, you changed. I can't believe you acting like that now. Well, acting like what? I'd rather have peace. I'd rather create a home environment where I can, be honest and have wholesome conversations, or talk about the unhealthy things. Because some of our elders or some people are not at that place due to their egos or due to their, belief systems. Y'all not ready to sit down and have these conversations. So you want people to wait around and what? Talk about it? What, years? When we have seen patterns of people, them days is over. That's done. Where people just sitting back. It's just, I've learned that your worth is like what you will and will not tolerate. And that's in any and everything. Career, relationship, so forth. Even with yourself. You got to be like, self, man, look, bro. Let me tell you something. We ain't tolerating this no more. That's how all things you got to be with yourself. And once you check you and realize like it's you and certain things, it is certain people and certain things. But again, when you realize, oh man, it's been me all along. Hold on. Meaning like I could have been walked out of this. But what was my fear? Finances. What was this? What was that? So many things. Oh, why did I? And so that's the thing that a lot of our elders did not see. They weren't given or often that world of really having to sit down and see this about themselves. It's us. It's us, man. It's us, y'all. It's us. They don't know nothing about this. when I'm sitting here, I'm so ready. When I finish this, oh my gosh, because it's the place I had to get here, and then being reminded and reflected of even the naysayers of saying, not that it matters now, because again, it did, because we all was there. It did. Like you can't do it, and you be like, oh my gosh, they hurt my. And in reality, it only fueled me. How you gonna do this? And it ain't even about that. I'm already living. So to make a living, I'm already doing what I love to do. So it's now approaching things with a lighter heart, very childlike, very, fun-like. Let me just, it'll come out the way it is. Once I see kids do stuff, they ain't trying to do it perfect. Their lines are not perfect. Whatever they're doing in life, they're not trying to do it perfectly. And who do we learn that from? That perfectionism. These blueprints that we had from the people that came before, the structures and all that was very narcissistic. Very. And once we acknowledge that, we will realize how we're being rebirthed through those. We're rebirthing a new system, a new environment, a new everything. We're being rebirthed through that destruction of the old. If we're willing to evolve, if we're willing to let go of the idea, of the mindset, of the emotions, of the attachments, our own selfish attachments of why people should stay in our life, and so forth. And in reality, it's you. So I challenge you. Start watering yourself. Water your garden. Before you get up, I had to learn to do that. I used to get up, and I thought I had to be, at this moment, like, immediately go right to my daughter. And I was like, no. There are moments where I get up a little early. I have to sit with myself. I had to get up. Sometimes I go for a walk. Do things that really set the intentions for me. Because if I don't, I realize, like an elder said, if you don't make time for yourself, and this is what I feel the biggest things, and I'm going to let y'all go on this. The biggest things is that a lot of our elders and the people in the old world, they will never probably say it, but they internalize a lot of what I say repressed envy or resentment. And their resentment is the fact of them having to be in survival. It's not that they resent you, it's that they resent the things that they never got an opportunity to do or to fulfill. And they feel like a part of that was ripped away from them sometimes when they did have kids, when they didn't have the guidance, a mother or father, them didn't have the guidance where a mom and dad should have told them, like, hey, you shouldn't go out there, you shouldn't do this, and so forth. A lot of us didn't have that guidance. A lot of even our elders had to, grow up so fast. They had to be in hyper masculine and hyper feminine roles. They had to be mothers to their brothers and sisters and to their own mother and fathers. So, here we are again trying to realize, like, whoa. Once we pinpoint that, then we'll see exactly what we're here to change within ourselves. They carry a lot of resentment. They'll never say it. They carry a lot of resentment that's been passed down through the lineage because they never got the opportunity to really have fun. Never really had the opportunity to step out in faith. Because they felt like they either were stuck in their circumstances, their environment, and so forth. I've seen it. I've seen people never get out of their hometown. I know people now, every time I talk to them, I'm like, oh my gosh, what? People that either can have money, they're sitting on money. It ain't even just the money, it's the mindset. It's their internal blockages, and they hold on to this resentment. It's the resentment or something within them that keeps them blocked. Their fear is so many things. And it's not their fault. It's not to blame no one. It's just I realize with a lot of elders, there's resentment. Because I used to see why they used to attack and project. For one, I knew someone that was an artist. And they saw that I was an artist. And that was immediately, I reflect on it now, there was no support. And that, at my time on my journey, my father wasn't as present. But here was a man that was a father figure, was someone I had respect for because I didn't ever disrespect him. I didn't ever, dishonor him in any way. And, just meeting someone. But just for them to project and say, oh, what do you do for a living? And how you gonna, you can't make a living off art or certain things. What they not know is that, and that's the funny thing, you got to sit back and laugh, because at a time it did hurt me, because here you is trying to build a bridge with, me not having a father. And this is what a lot of men are affected by, is that sometimes we can be in the past or be connected to someone we love, or be connected to someone, whether you're in a relationship, partnership, or so forth. And whether it's a father or a mother, their insecurities are highlighted, because again, there's this resentment or jealousy to where they could have the career. They could be in a career where they're making all this money. They could be in a place where they're doing all these things, but they don't love what they do. There's no passion. And sometimes their resentment or their insecurities can show and be highlighted by projecting, their deepest insecurities about their unfulfilled dreams onto you, onto a child, or to someone else. And this is what happened with a lot of us young and or certain ages now, to where they'll say these things. And where I came to the self-realization, I was like, wow, they're really wounded, or they really are insecure. And you being in your confidence, or just the energy you walk in, you don't need all the material things. You don't need to boast about what you have and so forth. You don't need to make others feel lower or to devalue them just because where you are presently and where they are presently, and they feel that they have more. They feel that they're better. And, it's unfortunately, that's what is the ignorance is so bliss around it, is because they don't know their value, their self-worth, and see that we're all valuable. To see that sometimes you can be a bridge and you're trying to build a bridge and they automatically burn the bridge, and not knowing that someday that same person can be used in a way to where something happens, and where the Most High put you in a position just to help that person, that very person that devalued you, or, outcasted you, or spoke on you in a disrespectful way. Never really approached you, never really wanted to sit down, never really wanted to build something. And I realized that disconnect is within them. They never wanted to build within themselves, so they're not going to build with you, or that disconnect stems from their childhood. And so again, we have seen what I witnessed around the world, is that you've seen a lot of people in these unfulfilled places, in these places where they're sheltering their deepest insecurities, or they fear change, or they fear being uncomfortable because they've been in it so long, where their mother have pressured them, their father, or, all these things, to where they're not really showing up as themselves. And if they do, they're either afraid of the criticism, or they're afraid, or the world has taught them, like, if you don't do this, the social norms, then you're not successful, you're not. And so I start to, again, as a man that has become in tune with his emotion and faced a lot of things within myself, I can immediately see the insecurities, or read the energy, not without saying nothing. Because no one, shout out to a sister that said, no one's going to attack someone that doesn't have value. And that's because, again, the world has been centered around people who don't know their worth. And that's where you see all these projections, all these insecurities, all these judgments of this person, that this happened to them. And they speaking of all these things, because, again, a world that was created, a blueprint on the devaluing of people, no self-worth, no self-value. Because they value what they thought they valued, or what their value lied in, was things that didn't have substance. And so I've seen these projections a lot. I will see people, oh, how you going to do this? How you going to do that? And it's not even about proving it. Because there was a point to where I thought, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this because this person said this. And in reality, I'm at my own pace. Because that's what emotions teaches you. That's what life teaches you. Slow and steady. And that's what you're planting seeds, and then you're planting seeds, and then you're watering yourself. They know nothing about, because they've been in a place where they water others. And so that's where their distaste comes from, that comes out of their mouth. That's where their lack of integrity doesn't come in. Because here they is thinking they're being honest with themselves and they're not even walking in integrity. They're afraid to really be honest with themselves and they've been running from themselves. So again, this is through the process. I wasn't always here, but I'll be self-reflecting and be like, wow, now I see why they said it. Oh, now I see why there was no support. And in reality, it showed me. Like, okay, even though that rejection is for my protection, let me water myself. Then let me get in a place to where, within myself that, okay, their chatter starts to get lower. And it's not about you proving something. It's just you're walking in integrity, you being who you are. That noise from people, that all that stuff starts to simmer down or just fade away. And then you'll be in a position where, in a place within yourself, holistically, a peaceful place to where you be like, wow, now I see why they were reflecting back either an energy I was in or an energy that doesn't serve me. And so the beauty of it all is like, okay, now I realize that watering myself, being who I am and showing up and really seeing those parts where people are neglecting themselves, now I can see the wounded. Most importantly, I can see it within myself. So let me water myself. Let me show up. Then, as I move forward, I realize, I betted on myself. I hit the jackpot with myself. I've always been valuable. I've always been the things. I am the asset. I am the currency. I am the beauty. I am all of those things. So there's not much to be said as you water you and you begin to blossom, and the things, the seeds years ago or certain things begin to blossom. Even if it doesn't matter if they don't want to see it, the divine will have a way to where something will show up in somewhere and be like, wow. And it don't be like wow in the sense like you have to boast. It just showed me not to do and not to be who they are. Because I recognize that it wasn't integrity. And if that doesn't reflect my core value, then I also realize like, let me not do what they did. Forgive them. Hopefully, it is what it is. Let me get into a place where I can attract those who reciprocate and know the importance of the same core values that I reflect. And or now, whoever doesn't, let me honor my spirit of discernment to know like, oh, nah, I'm good. Let me stand in that power, because the beauty of a lot of it is that you're always going to be blossoming. As long as you continue to water yourself, you will attract others who knows that the importance of that as well. And even if you attract others who don't know, you will have that discernment to know like, this doesn't serve me. And that's the thing I realized with balancing with life. You got some that will come water you and some that will come and remind you to water yourself. And that's my message. Peace and bliss. Shalom.